Podcast with hosts Andrew Clark and Chris Emery. This is designed to be a discussion on all things life and faith. We hope this serves as a weekly resource and encouragement to you.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Bayview Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew, joined as always by Chris. How are you?
Hello. I'm good, man.
Good.
Doing really good.
Yeah.
So it always, I don't know, like I could be going through my day, and on the days we record this, we're coming off a pretty good stretch of meetings typically, and I can kind of be dragging, kind of like, I don't know, something about getting here in the studio and getting ready to share and talk.
Yeah.
Gets me going.
A little bit of a spirit lifter. Yeah, that's true. It's kind of, we do a lot on these days, and so to kind of just come and chill for a minute is nice, and to meet people or have good conversation, and so it's been good.
Yeah. We've got a couple more weeks of doing the Beatitudes, and then we'll probably get back into have some guests.
Yeah.
Some other topics.
Yeah, just keep learning. I mean, I know for us, like, that's been we say resource, and I think we've kind of joked throughout the whole process of even doing the Beatitudes and some of this, like, just the resource that this time has been. And so, hopefully it is for the people listening. And if the only benefits that you and I get a resource out of it, then that feels like also a win.
Well, rock on. If it's just what if there's nobody actually listening, but it's literally just you and I talking. We get done. We're like, man, we killed it today. That was awesome.
It's just Brock in the corner who's listened.
And who's really not even paying attention. He's watching beekeeper videos the whole time.
Got him.
No, I know it is. Actually, we have good conversation with a lot of listeners, and we just want this to be something, it's intentionally raw, kind of uncut, unscripted, because so much of our following Jesus, of this Christian life, it is continually just figuring it out and learning and discussing and discovering.
Yep. And
that's kind of the cool adventure of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that there's always something more to uncover and to dig into. And that's what we wanted this to be. We didn't want this to be anything formal or intellectual. Yep. There are people way smarter than us doing podcasts.
Yep.
But, just something to be real and talk about something. And maybe in the middle of your week, maybe you listen when you're driving to work or home or driving kids to school, whatever. Just something in the middle to be like, okay, I needed that.
Sure.
So we hope that's what it is.
Yeah. No, we hope that too. And this Beatitudes kind of series that we've been running through, I think has been really cool because it's really just been a little bit deeper dive into what we talked about on Sunday and kind of transitioning to this past Sunday, talked about the idea of being a peacemaker. Right. And what that really looks like for the believer, and really what is the last kind of mark of a disciple. As we've used that language at the Beatitudes, kind of are progressive in the sense of one works into another, and then you kind of get this list, and then really when you step back and look at the bigger picture, you have a disciple of Jesus. You have someone who's obeying and following, and we'll get to the idea of persecution in that conversation in weeks to follow, but so this peacemaker, this is the last kind of, like they said, mark of a disciple, and maybe just give us a brief breakdown or recap, or maybe even how we got to this point and how you've seen it all kind of come together.
I think one of the things that I have really enjoyed, kind of the discovery portion of all of this, is even some of the Beatitudes that I personally didn't fully grasp the depth of their meaning. Yeah. I remember the first time I studied about meekness years and years ago, I just was so blown away by the depth and power of that word. Yep. Like, I didn't really, I was like many people, meekness must be timid, defeated, shy, wallflower kind. And that couldn't be further from the truth of that. And so all of these just digging in deeper to be like, wow, not that we were reading it wrong, but I was missing the depth of it.
Yeah, they are really easy to take at face value and find meaning, but it's like, because the poor in spirit, we can very quickly just go to like, someone who's the poor, or like the mourner sin. Those who've lost. Like, correct. It's really easy, meek. Those who are weak, like to take it like you said, at face value. But yeah, that deeper dive, the look behind the curtain of like, what is actually being said here?
Yeah.
Poor in spirit meaning nothing to do with being poor, or meek being nothing to do with being timid, or mourning having nothing to do with loss, but the actual like this side of it. And so I found that to be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I almost kept taking them for so long as here's 8 things that Jesus says he'll do for you.
Oh, sure.
You know, because you really read it that way. Hey, blessed if you're mourning. Hey, if you're sad from losing somebody, I'm going to come in and I'm going to give you comfort. So it's like, it's like it was just so easy to see it that way.
Yeah.
And that's just not even close to what these are. It's not what the word blessed means in its original context. It's not what Jesus is saying.
Yeah.
He's saying, hey, I'm calling you to be a follower of mine, but to be a follower of Jesus, a disciple, here are the things it takes.
Yeah.
Here's how it takes. Here's the progression of how to become that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And it just is completely, to why we're calling the series Upside Down, because it is a complete upside down, not just from the world's way of doing things, but a complete upside down from probably how we've been approaching this passage.
Yeah.
And we've missed it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, and so I don't know. I've enjoyed it. I've felt challenged by it.
Yeah.
And you know, this last or 2 weeks ago we did Blessed are the pure in heart.
Yeah.
And just really dug deep into the things that exist that divide our heart from God, that the pain we continue to carry or the sin we continue to carry. And it was just a very powerful time as the Holy Spirit worked, and so many people, I mean a ton of people kind of genuinely these confessions pouring in of things in their heart that they wanted to be purified from. And then this last week now, it is the final mark before we dig into blessed are those who are persecuted, which is now the result of being a follower.
Yeah.
But this one we read this last week was blessed are the peacemakers. I like the way we read it in the New Living Translation. It kind of says it a little differently. It says, God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called the children of God. And I like that. It says the same thing, but just in a different word.
Yeah.
I've been presented, I've taught on, I've been taught that there's a difference between a peacemaker and a peacekeeper. What's been your understanding? What's your understandable difference between those two words?
For me, when I hear the word peacemaker, I just jump to someone whose goal is to there be no conflict. Okay. The issue is, I think, a lot of times though, I trend more in the direction of a peacemaker is mostly because I think of the Enneagram, and we don't get into that discussion, but I fall in this category that labels me a peacemaker.
Okay.
And really what it comes down to, and this is a very bad description in brief, my wife should come on and explain it more, but I have a desire to see both sides, but I truly just have a desire for peace, however that may come out.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's more of a borderline control thing on my end. Like, I just don't like conflict. So almost, I guess I look at it this way, like in a very basic term, when I hear the word peacemaker, that's just my personal thing. I almost view it as weakness, because I just view someone who doesn't want to deal with conflict.
So just deny, avoid, suppress.
Like,
interesting. Like
that stuff. I'm not saying I necessarily do that, but I just think that's what I view. It's almost like a pacifist. It's someone who's just like not looking to like really deal.
So when I hear that description, that makes me think of more of a peacekeeper.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think I have self-identified that trait in me from a very early age, being passive, being willing to give in the name of peace, sacrifice in the name of peace, but to a faulty area of not wanting to really dig to the core issue, not really wanting to have the tough conversation. Let's just say I'm sorry and move on, my fault. And that's peacekeeping, and it really is not productive. But then there is peacemaking, but you said something interesting, because I suppose as you were talking, I can imagine a destructive version of peacemaking.
Sure.
Because, you said, sometimes that means making peace at all costs.
Yep.
And there could be a harshness to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think because I like I said, I see it, again, just kind of being more open about even my own thinking, is a lot of times it's like compromise without there really being a compromise. It's just kind of like you said, almost like, if this will make everyone settle down, then let's just do this.
Yeah.
And really no one's truly satisfied. No one's the conflict might even still be there, the angst, animosity, whatever word you want to put in there. But at least like it feels okay.
Kind of the facade of peace.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because the Beatitude right before this is talking about doing the internal work that is real and not just the external work that is pretty for people to see. And I think peace can be that same thing. And rest assured that peace, I don't think peace is achievable without the presence of some sort of conflict, some sort of angst or fighting.
Yeah, that's good.
For lack of a better term.
Yep.
I mean, peace has to come out of something.
Yep.
And maybe it's that internal. Well, what's interesting here is I don't know how you've read this Beatitude. I've always read this Beatitude as, blessed are those that are just chill.
Yeah.
Just don't rock the boat. Don't give in, but, just keep everybody kind of happy and relaxed. And so I kind of, again, envisioned almost like a weakening type progression.
Yeah. That's kind of what I would say, like what I would agree with. Like, it's almost like a bad example. It's almost like a firefighter who's just going around putting out all the little fires. And it's like, we didn't really figure out why there's a fire to begin with. Maybe it's still even smoldering, but you can't see any flames. So it's just like, all right, cool. Like I'm just, and you kind of become, you're almost just running around with your head cut off, like just trying to like make sure things are peaceful, but we're not getting to the core of things. I think that's how I would view it, and how I've kind of read it.
And I think that's not a horrible misinterpretation.
Sure.
I think it's like many of the others, it's very surfacey.
Yep.
Because as I've been digging into this, and as we looked at it even this last weekend together, what we discover happening here is Jesus is calling us to a much deeper execution of this. And really, as I look back, it makes more sense now to think like, well, as with everything with Jesus, peace does not start on the outside in. So peace is not removing external conflict. Peace is not just keeping everybody calm. That's behavior modification.
Yeah.
Like the total life transformation through Jesus Christ, it starts on the inside and works its way out. Yeah. And what he's really saying here is blessed are those who help others discover the true source of peace.
That's good.
Blessed are those that help people discover peace.
That's good. Yeah.
Not making peace because you apologized first or because you gave in or compromised. And so I shared this Sunday, but I wanted to read this again because it's very much a little bit of an eye-opener because in the original context, this word, even now, it's used probably in the Jewish community, the word shalom.
Yeah.
And you hear that, and I wasn't always familiar with what that meant, but shalom. And what it's really saying is that, I lost it there. It's an expressed desire that the one greeted will have all the righteousness and goodness God can give. The expressed desire that who I'm saying this to will experience the goodness and righteousness of God.
Yeah.
So this became a big evangelical turn in my mind. At least, am I reading that right? That's how I'm hearing this. Like, oh, if I'm here to be one who's working for peace or making peace in others and in our world, well, the only way for that to really, genuinely, truly happen is to get them to God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because God's the source of peace.
Yep. No, I think that's correct. I think it really becomes, I think the language is almost like a mirror of God. It kind of, the deeper meaning is almost like, are you being an example of Christ?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you, when people see you, does does Christ permeate off you? Is it obvious that he is the one who you're following hard after? Like, or when people see you, is it kind of, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. I think it does. And I think it has to, again, if we're going to follow Jesus, be Christ-like, as a disciple, then we must be on the same agenda as he was.
Yeah.
And I think that this really challenges to the core of that, because if our attempt is to make peace through any other avenue other than getting someone to experience Jesus Christ, then are we giving them peace? Or we give them the facade of peace?
Yeah, we're just numbing. Are we just kind of giving us a moment? Is it actually dealt with? Yeah.
Is there ever truly peace in our world outside of Jesus Christ? Of course not.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a history buff.
Sure.
There are some of you listening who probably are, but I'm not aware of any of the classes I took on history. I'm not aware of any time in the history of the world where there was zero conflict going on, right? I mean, there's always a war somewhere, Civil War, World Wars, different invasions, conflict. I mean, there's always war, so there's never peace there.
Yeah.
So even if, the Miss America pageant contestant says world peace is her hope, and that's a pipe dream.
Yeah.
So world peace isn't going to happen. We're not going to experience peace because society figures it all out. We're not ever going to experience peace because society all sees everything one way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not going to work. And we're never going to find peace because our lives are void of conflict or trials. Right?
Yeah.
They're never going to happen.
Yeah.
So now we're beginning to kind of scratch off the list of, where's this? How are we going to even do this?
Yeah.
This is a big ask of Jesus, saying, hey, blessed are you. You're fortunate if you're part of this process of working for peace, making peace.
Yep.
Well, he's not talking about ending wars, and he's not talking about ending conflict. He's not talking about stopping pain, evil, or suffering. Yeah. That's the world we live in. He's talking about, blessed are those of you who through your efforts, through your life, through your example, you're helping people discover there is only one peace. There's only one source of peace, and it's me.
Yeah, that's good.
That changes the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's so good about it, and again, it just fits with what we've been talking about through and through with these Beatitudes. That's almost like the exclamation point on this whole idea of being a disciple. Because like you've done all this, and like you've seen how God has moved in your life and how he's changed it and how he's in control of it, and how there's a lot of work done to give your sin and give that thing over to him and seek forgiveness and all this. And he goes, and then in the end, will you be an example of him? Will you show others who he is?
Right.
Like essentially, like it's you've done a lot of talking, a little bit of walking, but this really is like, are you actually walking out a life after Jesus to the point where then people see it and like, okay, I want to know why your life is the way it is, like what you're about. And why you seem to, maybe when things are crazy, you seem to be at peace.
Yeah. How do you have peace in the midst of non-peace?
Yeah.
I talked about this a little bit this past Sunday as well, but it takes me right to the original 12 disciples. And maybe that is even confusing for some of you listening when we use that word disciple. Yes, there were the 12 disciples. They were the original followers of Jesus, but we are all called to be disciples.
Yeah.
We're called, Jesus said, go make disciples.
Which we could just say follower
of Jesus. That's all they were.
Yeah.
They were fishermen. They were, a doctor, a tax collector, random, just everyday ordinary people from walks of life who became disciples, not because any of them went to seminary, not because any of them performed miracles or had a following.
Yeah.
He didn't go recruit other public speakers.
Yeah.
It wasn't that.
Didn't find the influencers. Yeah.
There were no influencers at all. At all. he called ordinary people. The moment that the transition from ordinary person to disciple was the very moment that they said, yes, we'll follow you. Boom, disciple.
Yeah.
Lot to figure out still.
Yeah.
Lot to learn still. They showed us that mistakes are part of the process.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
I could have been hanging with those dudes because they missed the mark a lot of times.
Yep.
They weren't the brightest crayons in the box all the time. I mean, I could be there. I'm right there with them.
Yep.
They were just followers of Jesus, therefore they were disciples.
Yeah.
What was the sales pitch Jesus gave to the first disciples? What was it he said he was asking of them?
That they would go be fishers of men. Come follow me. Let's go be fishers of men. That's it. Go pursue others.
Yeah.
To follow him.
Yeah. Follow me, fishers of men. That was it. There was no other. Yeah. At least not that we have recorded here. There was no other. Subcategories. There's
bonus
no other
tied to it.
Nope. Travel and see the world. Yep. Eat foreign foods. Meet great people. There was none of that.
It was the selling point was, for some of these guys who were younger guys, like I wonder if the selling point was they were going to have a teacher. Like, and that was the thing. It's like when he says follow me, there wasn't language of until the end of their time together. That was now you will go into all the world. But that initial was follow me, learn from me, grow in me, and then eventually it turned into this because we're going to go get
I will make.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there was that process. There was a chance to go and learn and grow. And
that's good.
Yeah.
Which probably means for some, I mean, I don't think that there's the expectation. If you're new to Jesus, your excitement level is probably higher than it will be at any other time in your walk.
Sure.
Most likely. I mean, that's just kind of how we see it go.
Sure.
But you're probably the most ill-equipped at this point to share a lot of it, even though your story is still powerful. And it doesn't, I mean, preach it.
Yeah.
Get out there and share. Now's the time. But there's this process, and that's kind of what the Beatitudes have been, this progression of surrender and purifying and preparing to become this.
Yeah.
But that was all he asked of them. Follow me, and then this is what you'll be. And there was nothing in there about follow me and you'll become well known.
Yeah.
Follow me and you make a lot of money. Follow me and you have tons of friends. Yeah. Follow me. I mean, there was just nothing else there. Yeah. It was just so simple. And our classic move as humans is to overcomplicate it, make it more than it is. Yeah. No. And I think even for us, what we're finding through this Beatitude track is it's profound. It's life-changing. It is supernatural. But the process is pretty simple.
Yeah.
You're not good enough on your own.
Yeah.
You should really mourn, and you should be really sad about the sin in your life.
Yeah.
You need to surrender to me. Then you need to let me come in and bring you, help you understand what mercy looks like.
Yep.
And be purified. And now let's go help others find this peace that you found, because we all want peace.
Yeah.
Everybody is searching for peace. I mean, I think that would probably be the one common thread that anybody would be like, man, I think that's what they're saying. Like, man, if I just didn't have the worry and the anxiety, if I didn't have to stress over this or work so hard, you're looking for peace.
100%.
Peace for your soul, peace for your mind, peace for your heart. Can you make enough money and find peace? Probably not. Can you have that relationship you're looking for and then find peace? No.
Yep.
Relationships do not automatically equal peace. Let me promise you that.
Yep.
But so we're longing for that.
Yeah. And I think it is a good point that we're not talking about the avoidance of conflict.
Not at all.
In a lot of ways, it's like when there's this understanding, it's like there's almost this desire is not the right word, but to go at conflict and say, no, let's actually deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it is the classic, what would Jesus do in this moment? But it's like he would deal with the sin. He would deal with the whatever tension, animosity, anger, whatever the conflict is.
Yeah.
Let's deal with it. And I think you can do that because you're coming at it hopefully from someone you've already dealt with your stuff, and you know the idea of, like you said, to show mercy. and to offer forgiveness because you understand what's been done for you. And so you see this whole idea of actually with a peacemaker, then it goes from what my example was at the beginning to more someone who is willing to be like, all right, Jesus wouldn't stand for this.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get this sorted out?
Yeah, Jesus never avoided conflict.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he never missed an opportunity to speak absolute truth, to say the very hard things. I mean, he never backed down. Yeah. The Pharisees were trying to trap him all the time, and he, even when they didn't say anything, I love the moments where he's like, Jesus knew their thoughts. It's like, okay, that's cheating. Not fair, Jesus. You don't get to do that. Yeah. You know, he would always call him out. And it wasn't in pursuit of war. It wasn't in pursuit of a fight. It was in pursuit of peace. But oftentimes peace only exists on the other side of confrontation.
Yeah, that's good.
So, you know, we're confronting you know, things in our life, confronting sin in our lives. Mm-hmm. We can't find peace if we don't confront sin. Yeah. You know, and there's all these type of things that we don't like to mix them together, but that's how this goes.
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe you're listening and you've been avoiding peace. Well, go back to last week. Maybe peace has been missing because your heart's divided.
Yeah.
You're never going to find peace with a divided heart.
Yeah.
You know, Jesus said, you know, you can't serve two masters. You'll hate one, love the other. You'll despise one and serve the other. Yeah. And so that's where I would always, you know, that's where I would go quickly. Be like, hey, where's your heart? Yeah. And a divided heart, constant conflict. But through confronting the sin, confronting the pain, confronting whatever's dividing you, well, now I begin to step towards peace.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think that's making peace.
Yeah. No, I'd agree.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good time.
Sounds like a good time. So I guess then we'd have to beg the question, as a disciple, if my desire is to be a disciple, and this is the final mark, it's kind of like is the final checkbox.
Sure.
Can I be considered a disciple if I am not working to engage the world around me in any way to show them the way to Jesus?
I feel like the short answer is probably no.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is something we're called to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like to claim, I think a lot of the stuff that we've already talked about is going on in your life, and yet it's not apparent or not obvious. And again, we're not in this so that people will, it's not oh, look at me. We're not talking about, we've already talked about this. Like, we're not talking about perfection or self-righteousness or I'm better than you. It's not any of that. It's just, I mean, this is the call then. It's like, okay, you've seen all this work that's been done in your life. Why wouldn't you want people to know?
Right.
Why wouldn't you want people to understand peace? Why wouldn't you want to be this example? It's like I use that word permeate. Like I always think of two things. I think of walking into your home and someone's just baked like chocolate chip cookies, and that whole smell just fills the house, and you're just like, there's an aroma to it. There's a sense of like, whoa, like that presence, right? I also think of like a middle school locker room and Axe body spray. And it just permeates the room, but you're just like, whoa.
You're finishing up coaching JV basketball.
Yes.
I'm guessing your nose hairs are singed from Axe body spray. Yeah,
it's a mess. But but I think that idea of a life in Christ, right? That's rooted in Christ. That's your faith is being strengthened by Him. You're overflowing with joy because you've done you've seen all this stuff that's happened, and you've mourned that sin, and your heart's not divided anymore. It's like, then your life naturally should be permeating. It should your presence, like His presence, should just fill your life in the areas you enter.
Yeah. And you should be so overwhelmed by the peace you're experiencing that you want others to. It's like, I finally found it. You got to experience this. You've got to know what it's like to find the peace that supersedes my understanding, which is what the Bible promises it'll do. So peace in the places where it shouldn't be, that's supernatural. if I could understand it, well, then it's natural.
Yeah.
If it should be there, then it's natural. Something like that, that's of God.
Yeah.
And so that's what's always so much of like, and I know some of you are that way. I know some of you listening are. I receive a lot of your prayer requests. I know some of you are passionate about, your family members and your friends and your neighbors finding Jesus. I know you talk to them and you pray for them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also know that what we know from at least stats, a lot of followers of Jesus, a lot of Christians don't ever do that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because you're not truly experiencing the peace yourself.
Yeah. It's as we've talked, the more and more thing I keep thinking about is like when my dad passed,
Mm-hmm.
and he passed during a time when life as a whole was in a lot of turmoil for our
Mhm.
family and even in my own life, and then he passes away. And I remember thinking like, wow, this is terrible. But I wholeheartedly, like, genuinely felt at peace. Like there was a peace of like that goes beyond understanding, where like it didn't make sense. It wasn't like and this is not I mean, of course I wanted him around, so all that kind of stuff, but there was just this sense of like, God's got this. Like it's gonna be okay. And yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense, and it didn't, at the time didn't. I don't. Of course, there was tears shed and all that kind of stuff. But now looking back at it, it's like, how was that anything else other than the peace of God in my life? To not, and so often, and I don't blame people. So often you hear people when tragedy strikes that the first thing they do is throw their hands up and say, "Forget God," or whatever it might be, or they start questioning. There is that process. That's part of that's the grieving process. The questioning and all that. I totally get that. But to come out on the other side and almost feel closer to God, and to feel closer to God, it's like the word I would use to describe it was like there was just a peace that I couldn't explain. I don't think my wife could explain it to you. I don't think a lot of my family, but there was just like that understanding of like, I've given my life to him. So why now would I think, I can make it better if he's led me up to this point already? So I don't know. I don't know if that necessarily fits, but I think that's...
No, I think it fits perfectly.
But just that understanding.
No, I think that's beautiful, and I think that's a really great understanding of what this is saying. And I love that you said it's not that you could explain it, and that's not being asked of us.
Yep.
But if someone asked, you could certainly clearly tell them where to find it.
Yeah, and I think that's a peacemaker.
That's a peacemaker.
Yeah.
Because you're making peace happen in a world that needs it.
Yeah.
And I think that is ultimately the final call on the shoulders of disciples.
Yeah.
It's what Jesus was working towards from the beginning with his disciples. It's what he called us to do at the ascension. And it's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
It may happen through a growing church. It may happen through a small group in a living room. It may happen on an athletic field, in an office building. Location is rather trivial.
Yeah.
But the mission, the goal, the calling is the same. And rest assured, it is a call to all followers of Jesus.
Yeah, 100%.
We are all called to be part of this. If you're listening, you know people that I don't know. You know people that Andrew doesn't know.
Yep.
You have circles of influence that are way far away from my circles of influence. Don't put the hope of them hearing about Jesus on my shoulders.
Yeah.
I'm never going to meet them.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I'm never no, you're the one.
Yeah.
You're the one. You're called to be a maker of peace, the one who works for peace. And just like we talk frequently that there's only one true problem in the world. It's not government, violence, society. It's not, those are all results. The one problem in the world is sin.
Yeah.
There's only one solution to the world, and it's Jesus.
Yeah.
And as soon as we begin to embrace that and just let that be part of our everyday existence into every aspect of who we are and how we function. I'm still working on this. Please don't hear me say I've got this figured out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've got so many areas of my life still where I'm like, man, why did I allow that situation to get to me, or why did I react that way? Or, man, no, that's not making peace, because I'm not pointing them to the source of it. But I think that this is setting us up to be the church we're called to be.
Yeah, 100%.
As a whole, church universal.
Yeah,
and we're all trying to walk it together.
Yeah.
So
good stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we got one more week of Beatitudes. Don't miss next week's episode. We'll be breaking down the topic of persecution, which is really the result of now it's Jesus saying, as a disciple, be ready for this.
Yeah.
Here it comes. I'm not pulling any punches. So yeah, we'll be right back here next week breaking that down. Don't miss an episode. So hit subscribe at the bottom of the screen, top of the screen somewhere, whatever platform you're listening on. We're on all the major platforms. We just want to be here with you each and every week. Hope this is a place of encouragement, a resource. This is Chris and Andrew. Thank you for being with us on the Bayview Podcast, and we will see you next time around.